Hello, friends. I'm going to do something that I've actually been doing quite a lot of lately, which is reading my books and narrating my books. And so today, for my holiday season message, I'm going to read something I spent a little time writing. As this holiday season approaches, I've been reflecting on Charles Dickens' classic story, A Christmas Carol. In it, Ebenezer Scrooge is a symbol of all the ways each of us can be miserly with our hearts. In this allegory, Scrooge pays his secretary, Bob Cratchit, such a meager salary that Cratchit can barely provide a Christmas meal for his family, and his ill son, Tiny Tim, is dying of starvation. As you probably know, Scrooge is visited in his dreams by his old deceased business partner, Marley, who is bound in chains and utterly miserable due to a lifetime of greed and selfishness. Marley warns Scrooge that he has one chance to change his ways, or he will suffer the same fate. Then Scrooge has a series of dreams. In the first, he is shown the bleak loneliness of his childhood and the steady loss of love, while other families treated each other kindly and were happier. In the second dream vision, he is shown Christmas present, the Christmas that's about to happen. He sees happy people sharing, but he also sees the Cratchit family with a meager feast. And even though they are dignified, he is also told that Tiny Tim will die unless conditions change. Finally, he's shown the future in which no one grieves him. His grave is utterly neglected, while the Cratchit family is grieving the death of Tiny Tim. Sobbing in misery, his heart opens and Scrooge vows to change his ways. He awakens a changed man. For me, Scrooge in Dickens' novella can be seen as a timeless allegory for what has been so diseased and is increasingly continuously in the economies of nearly all societies. Take the US, where 0.01% of Americans are worth $23 trillion, while the lower 50% of Americans own $4 trillion. Or globally, where 0.001% of the world's population, about 56,000 people, have the same wealth as 2.8 billion adults in the bottom 50%. The consequences for democracy grow ever more dire as this imbalance increases, and the future of the environment and of the earth for all life is in terrible jeopardy because this kind of wealth feeds on every fairy tale for creating more wealth. Among the scariest scenarios is the race to dominate AI, where a single large database being built on 1,400 acres in Texas will require the energy of 180,000 homes, and there are thousands of all sizes being planned. I view the world through the mind of a biologist physician. To me, these monstrous energy-consuming structures are like metastatic cancer. Each metastasis, as tiny as it can be in the overall volume of our bodies, requires enormous energy in the form of nutrients that it not only devours from the healthy body, but sends biochemical messages for the body to make for it substances that only it can use. This seems to me to be analogous to what we are doing with accelerating energy demand so that we can stream movies and query AI. No one knows where this is going, but at this point we are going backward in terms of being able to stop CO2 emissions and global warming. Well, now that I have made you depressed, what about the message of A Christmas Carol and the potential for the awakening heart? That is the other lens I look through, the lens of fundamental transformation and what it takes to bring the awakened mind and heart into human affairs. This leads me to a kind of holiday season thought experiment. Suppose each of us in our own way are Scrooge, and we each have a series of dreams that show us how, even though mostly unintentionally, our good fortune sits atop so much suffering for others, whether in our own countries or around the world. And we collectively awaken, like Scrooge, to what we can each do in whatever way to enrich everyone. Enrich teachers so they no longer need to hold a second job in order to barely afford a home. Enrich childcare workers so that we trust our children are with loving, capable surrogates. We wake up and insist on progressive taxes for capital equivalent to taxes on work, grateful that we collectively choose to redistribute our good fortune to everyone. This is partly what people are doing in Denmark. There, the average person pays well over 50% in taxes, but what that translates to is excellent health care for everyone. It translates to a year of maternity leave for mothers with full pay and 6 months for fathers. It means that each citizen knows that their children will have high-quality free education, including graduate studies, for as far as that individual wants to go. It means that no one has to worry about how to care for aging parents because there's excellent elder care. It means that the government will support your entrepreneurial efforts so that the number of entrepreneurs in Denmark rivals that of the US. But whereas nearly 47% of US entrepreneurs say they began their business because they had to, only 3% of Danish businesses were started out of need, and all without debt. Now, I'm well aware that the circumstances are vastly different between a fairly homogeneous nation of 6 million versus the broad diversity of 340 million. But individually, we can make a difference. We wake up and voluntarily begin donating as much of our personal wealth surplus as is possible in our individual circumstances, a self-imposed tax, so that we make a tangible statement of what we value and wish to support in our world. This is grounded spiritual vision, and it is prayer. We're not asking God for anything. That is juvenile. What we are offering is gratitude and sowing vision. My consciousness sees humanity healing itself by choice. Only by devoting our lives to love will we no longer be seduced by wealth and power. And while the news is filled with so much that can take your attention and spin you into anger and despair, do not go there. Start by not letting your mind divide you within yourself with thoughts that lead to anger and judgment. Do not let your mind create a mental model of any person close to you that closes your heart to that person. All people are ultimately an otherness, a mystery, not something that can be objectified. Doing so only divides your heart and makes you suffer. I spend no time in the ugliness. It is so old. Scrooge repeating generation on generation. I envision all spiritual practitioners losing interest in personal enlightenment, which too often is a subtle form of self-involvement, a kind of Scrooge of the soul. I rest instead in a vision of shared humanity governed by the love of love. It is global philanthropy in which everyone are the haves. It is not socialism or any ism. This is true intelligence. This is sanity. This is a sense of purpose and order that uplifts every child who later becomes an adult, who rejoices in uplifting all those she can. This is the birth of the Christ consciousness, every day. Of course, many would say this is naive. What of the autocrats, the oligarchs, the fearmongers? In other words, the real Scrooges of the world. I know they can only exist in a fear-based consciousness created by people who are divided within themselves. As long as we build our lives with open hearts and generosity toward everyone we can touch, we create a collective field in which fearmongers lose their power and their grasp on us. They too will eventually succumb to love's embrace. Or perhaps we all perish. But those who choose won't perish with closed hearts. And that is the whole purpose of a life well lived. I wish you all joy for the holiday season and a fulfilling new year. Blessings.